Well, the federal government may be forced to front an inquiry into why it rejected Qatar Airways' request for extra flights in and out of Australia, 28 extra flights. The coalition is accusing the Albanese government of running a protection racket for Qantas.
Will the Prime Minister detail discussions he or his office has had with Qantas CEO Alan Joyce or with other senior Qantas directors or executives concerning the sweetheart deal that has blocked Qatar Airways from additional flights to and from our country, forcing Australians to pay thousands more for their air travel?
The Queensland Labor government is even speaking out against the Albanese government, saying that the extra flights would lower airfares, create jobs and boost tourism. Well, one journalist who has been ruthlessly holding Qantas to task for months since August last year is the Fin Review's Joe Aston. He's been searing in his criticisms of Qantas and its CEO, Alan Joyce. Aston broke the stories about the Qantas Chairman's Club membership for Albanese's son, the sweetheart deal, as Dutton calls it, with Qantas over Qatar, and also the ACCC no longer monitoring what's become Australia's most complained about company. Today, in his latest column, Joe Aston writes, Joyce has raised the grooming and capturing of strategically important people to high art. He compromises people. He has them in his thrall and they don't even know it. Richard Goyder, that's the Qantas chairman, no contest, an absolute layup. And Joe Aston joins me now to discuss this. Joe, thank you very much for your time.
Good to be here, Sherry.
Now, the most egregious aspect of this, you could argue, is the whole saga with the flight credits and really how Qantas was forced by the watchdog to actually stop effectively stealing $500 million worth of people's own money.
Yep, so those flight credits were due to expire on the 31st of December. Alan Joyce had been saying last week, up to the last Monday when the Senate hearing, he'd been saying that the balance of those credits had fallen from $800 million in January to $370 million. And it turned out that he'd been tricky about that language, that actually it's $570 million. And, you know, it's only 120 days or so from expiring. And the Senate committee very effectively forced him to admit that it wasn't 370, it was 570. And the ACCC, of course, on Thursday made it very clear that that was a completely unacceptable situation. As you say, it would have been legal theft. And it would have been a bonanza of free profit, an extra $500 million of profit. Bear in mind the half-year profit of Qantas is about $1.4 billion. So it's a huge boost to profit, huge boost to bonuses, all by making it pretty much impossible or very difficult at least, for Qantas customers to get effectively money back for a service that was never provided. So that was very rewarding to see the ACCC put their foot down and Qantas scurry away from that position. Alan Joyce released a video saying, we've listened. I don't know that that's really true.
Hadn't listened, there was no come to Jesus moment. He was forced into it.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, I'm not sure it's really listening if someone grabs your ear and holds it to the microphone.
Yeah.
But that's just Qantas yet again. They've always got a line.
Now, let's look at this Qatar Airways decision. So the Albanese government blocked Qatar Airways' request for 28 flights in and out of the country. Qantas had been lobbying, but it's not exactly clear who they spoke to, whether it was the Prime Minister. He denies this.
Yep, and that was a focus of question time, as your intro pointed out today. Look, it's a pretty mysterious situation. Qatar applied for the flights in October last year. There are a lot fewer flights coming into Australia at that point. Everyone's trying to ramp up their flights because there's so much demand. Everyone wants to fly, and every airline has had their planes in cotton wool. Qantas in particular said, we can't get the number of seats internationally back to where they were pre-COVID until financial 2025. But Qatar says, no, we can add 4 flights a day, 4 flights a day, one a day into Sydney, Melbourne, Perth and Brisbane right now. So you would have thought the Australian government, think about all the jobs that creates in tourism, airports, all these people flying into Australia from overseas, spending money.
Not to mention inflation.
Well, indeed, and bringing down the price of travel for people to leave Australia, precisely. you would have thought that that would have been a pretty compelling offer. Every single party to that decision, everyone asked for feedback other than Qantas, said, yes, we support this. That includes state Labor governments, state tourism, airports, travel agents, even reportedly Don Farrell, the Federal Trade Minister, supported that decision. The only party saying no was Qantas, and surprise, surprise, the Albanese government said no.
Now, one of the more controversial things you've reported is that Albanese's own son, Nathan, holds a membership to the Qantas Chairman's Club, or the Chairman's Lounge, and he didn't get there on his own merits. You know, Anthony Albanese tried to say, look, he's just a young guy making his way in the world. Of course, that's true. We'd, you know, have the greatest respect for people trying to make their way in the world, but he wasn't there on his own merits.
Yeah, well, look, I agree with you. This is not about Nathan Albanese. Good luck to him, and I hope he does really well. But the point of this, it's not about Albanese's son, it's about Albanese not letting his son make his way in the world. It's about Albanese calling in secret favours and benefits that your regular Australians don't have access to. It's about the way he uses his office in that way. I'm not suggesting that, you know, that Albanese made his decision on Qatar Airways, which, well, he says it was Catherine King's decision, but we all know that Albanese ultimately is the real Transport Minister. I'm not suggesting that he made that he ensured that decision was made because his son was made a member of the Chairman's Lounge. Of course not, but it's just a terrible look. And no other Member of Parliament has, as far as I've been able to establish, ever had their child made a member of the Chairman's Lounge. This is taking it to a whole new level.
And it was interesting that Alan Joyce wouldn't answer questions about this in that Senate inquiry. It was like there was a new rule just for Chairman's Club membership. So, you know, I don't take questions on that topic.
Yeah, it's like Fight Club, you know.
Yeah.
I don't talk about Chairman's Lounge.
I don't talk about it, exactly. Now, just finally, before you go, I want to note that when you started breaking these stories, before it really took off in the rest of the media, Alan Joyce and Richard Goyder came in to your bosses. They complained about your reporting. The Fin Review was pulled from Qantas club lounges. You know, what does this say to you about how Qantas thinks it can control the media and the government?
So, yeah, I mean, Qantas is one of the most successful influence peddling machines in modern Australia. For the last 30 years, it's managed to get its way with federal governments, state governments and the media very, very effectively, and full credit to them. They're not accustomed to being criticised stridently and in a sustained fashion. And they haven't really known how to cope with that. The amazing thing to me is that the chairman of Qantas was reading these articles about what was going wrong at Qantas, and instead of saying, maybe we need to look into some of this, he was saying, OK, we've got to shut this down. I mean, that tells you a lot about their mindset.
No, exactly. Jo Aston, thank you very much. And we'll continue reading your remarkable reporting.
Thank you.